Hi, this is Aaron Frischberg coming to you from Just 1A, and I'm here with Jimmy McDermott, the co-founder and CTO of Transeo. How's it going, Jimmy?
Hey, Aaron, it's going well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first, to just kind of start off with an icebreaker. If you could be any animal, what would you be? But it's more specific on like why you would be that animal or why you would pick that.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. I think I'd be a dog. I think dogs are so happy. They live the life. They're no
Sure.
worries, and they get to just kind of chill and hang out all day. So I
Yeah.
think that would be a fun animal.
Do you have any dogs?
I do. I have one dog. Yeah, he's hanging around here somewhere. Hopefully, he won't interrupt us.
Sure. Awesome. Um, and then if you had $50,000 just to spend personally, what would you use it for?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably a new apartment. Mine has cockroaches currently, so dealing with that. Or maybe I
Uh,
use money to try to exterminate the cockroaches.
sure.
Something along those lines would be my guess.
That's nice. Yeah. All right. So what do you think is your like 45-second spiel about Transeo?
Yeah, definitely. So I serve as a CTO and co-founder of a company called Transeo. We're building educational software for high school students to try to help them figure out what their path looks like after high school. So whether that be kind of the traditional high school to college route that we see many students go down, or whether it be something that is today maybe more non-traditional, but we would love to see become much more traditional, like going into a job, an apprenticeship, an internship, a coding boot camp, right? All different sorts of options that exist after high school, and try and help surface all those options, understand what a student likes, and then help them, figure out what their path looks like. So that's what we do. We work with school districts, high school districts across the country, and yeah, that's our system.
Sounds really incredible and awesome. Um, and I was also curious just about like kind of the founding of Transeo. It said that you founded it basically right out of high school. Is that true?
That's right. Yeah. So I was very fortunate in high school. I think that entrepreneurship in a lot of ways boils down, so much of it is luck and timing and being in the right place at the right time. And that was certainly true for me too. When I was in high school, I was in the like freshman year of high school. My high school district was piloting this really innovative curriculum teaching high school students how to build iOS apps. And now, if you look across kind of high school computer science curriculum, that's not necessarily an uncommon thing. It's still relatively niche, but certainly not uncommon. At the time, we were one of 7 high schools in the entire world that were kind of teaching that, and so very much landed in the right place at the right time. Had some amazing experiences and kind of set me on the entrepreneurship and computer science pathway. And then from there, ended up working full time. I grew up in Chicago, and so in the city of Chicago, as a iOS app developer during high school, and then from there that kind of launched into Transeo eventually through a few different kind of twists and turns. But really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with Transeo is help scale the types of experiences that I was fortunate enough to have when I was in high school, to all students, right? Because that experience really taught me a lot about what I wanted to do after high school and what a post-secondary pathway looked like for me. And a lot of students don't have that opportunity, and so we're trying to use our technology to fill that gap.
That's really incredible. Wow. Yeah. And then I was also curious. So I was looking at your like team, and I saw that you were a co-founder as well as two people that looked like they had PhDs and they were a bit like more experienced, older. And so I was curious, like how that like worked with you being basically just right out of high school founding this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's another area where I feel very fortunate. My two co-founders, Don and Dave. Don is our CEO, and Dave is our president. Are incredible. They're both extremely well educated, as you noted. They both have PhDs, and most importantly, kind of for what the work that we're doing, they both have really deep experience as educators. Don kind of went from the educational world into entrepreneurship, had founded and successfully exited an ed tech company prior to Transeo as well. And so there's just this amazing wealth of knowledge among them of what's going well and what's not going well, kind of at an administrator level within the educational institutions of the world right now. And so as it relates to kind of our relationship, it's wonderful. I lean on them for everything go to market related and everything when there's needs to be an understanding of what's happening with school districts, and they kind of lean on me when it comes to product and technology and engineering and the other side of things. And so feel very fortunate for that relationship.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I was actually talking to someone earlier, and they said that I asked like what they felt was the most valuable thing, like starting a company early on, and they said it was actually the people. And so, do you feel that that kind of resonates with what happened at Transeo?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been around for like little under 6 years. Technically we're still pretty young when it comes to kind of the broader scale of startups and the length of startups. But I think that at every stage of the startup, to varying degrees, the people are so critical, and especially in the early stages, right? I mean, in the early days when it was just us as a founding team, no product, no revenue, no customers, trying to figure out what we were actually doing. That's the only thing that there was to take a bet on, right? For investors and for customers and for employees and all that. And so the people are so important, and the people who make up kind of the foundation of the company are just so critical to the success that will or won't come, to the company.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. And then I was curious about, as a recent college graduate, especially with kind of like a CS degree of sorts, how you felt that like real world work kind of related to what you're doing or what you did in college.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that college, for me, in a lot of ways, was very complementary to a lot of experiences professionally that I had before college and then during college, and obviously now after college, and particularly the connections and the network that was made during my time in college has been so valuable. Some of my best friends have come from that. And then a lot of my, very good friends are also founders and also starting companies. And so having that network and being able to build up that network has been such a valuable resource. And so, I think that's where a ton of the value really came from for me.
That's incredible. Yeah. Wow. And then I was also curious, kind of just a total pivot, but as someone that works in the tech and education like sphere, I was curious about how you felt about like the recent release of Chat GPT, especially because people are kind of worried like what this means for education, if people are just going to forge assignments. And so I was curious how you felt about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that Chat GPT and just everything that's kind of circling the generative AI space right now is really earth shattering. And I'm certainly that's not a novel opinion. I think most people kind of feel that way. But I think as it relates to education, I think there's going to be a really interesting seismic shift, I think, in the short term in how teachers and how educational institutions have to think about the value of the work that they're given. I think that the first thing that's going to happen right away is that kind of busy work assignments that really had no intrinsic value to the learning operation are going to get kind of wiped off, because they'll be so easy to fake and to work through with these AI tools. The next step, I think, will be, all right, well, what does this mean for, take-home essays and take-home assignments and some of the broader things that certainly do have, impact on kind of the learning process, but are also more important in terms of maybe your grade in the class or things like that. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens with those. I also think there's kind of an analysis that I saw that, I certainly didn't come up with, that this will start to create almost like an arms race between how good can the AI get and how good can the tools that are going to try to detect the AI outputs get. I think that's going to be really interesting to watch too. I actually think I saw that OpenAI said they're going to try to come out with tools themselves that will help detect if text has been generated by one of their models. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I think, if there's any piece of advice I were to give on that right now, it would be, if you're a student, don't mess with that right now. It's not worth any potential academic integrity, problems you may run into, even though the tech itself is extremely cool and really valuable.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Especially as a college student, it's definitely being floated around campus. Like, should I just put this in for my essay? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure it's already happening, right? I mean, it's been out for what, like 2 or 3 weeks now, and it's I have no doubt that there are multitudes of assignments that have already been submitted, using that. So certainly going to be an interesting kind of moment for us as a society to look at that.
Definitely, yeah. And so recently, I actually just like kind of to test it. I have computer science program assignments, and I
Oh
took
yeah,
the one that I did like 2 weeks ago, and I just plugged it in, and it basically did it to a T, which was an interesting way. I think that you're right about getting rid of kind of like not really necessary take home assignments. But I'm also curious how you feel about like it's being kind of floated around that there might like we might incorporate ChatGPT and like AI tools like this into education, maybe
yeah,
similar like to how your high school started that like iOS course.
yeah.
We could now have like ChatGPT courses just focusing on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think AI as a whole, it is a really it's rich for kind of an educational disruption, if you will, in the sense of like it's crazy to think that 10 years ago it was such a wild concept to be teaching students how to build apps, right? I think right now it'll probably be it's a wild concept to be teaching kids how to program large language models and interact with that type of stuff. But in 10 years down the road, it's going to be like, well, of course we needed to do that, right? For the benefit of the workforce and filling kind of the skills gap. And so, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch that and kind of see how it all unfolds.
yeah, definitely. And then also just kind of pivot elsewhere. I was curious, like for someone that was interested in starting a business like Transeo or just kind of like a project in that realm, I was curious if you had any really helpful like advice that you would have really appreciated like in your position of founding it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received is just start. I think there's this kind of misconception that in order to start a business or start a project or build a company or whatever it may be, that you got to have kind of every perfect thing lined up, right? You need like the perfect name and the perfect idea and the perfect tech stack and all that kind of stuff. And none of that is true. What you really need is the ambition and the drive to just get off the floor and go and figure it out along the way. I can't even count at this point how many times we've pivoted and made different strategic decisions, and that's every company, right? I mean, we changed our name. Like, I mean, it's everything is changeable, right? So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice. If you're interested in doing something, just start, see where it goes, and be willing and flexible enough to kind of pivot in the moment as needed, as the market tells you what is and isn't working, and as your customers start to help you figure out if what you're building is valuable or not. So that would be my piece of advice.
Sure. Yeah. And I'd also love to hear like how did you really jump into Transeo and just kind of like start, like you said?
Yeah, so for us, we actually started as a community service tracking app, which now we have 5 products now in our suite of readiness tools, and that's one of them still. But that's a perfect example actually of how we ended up pivoting, right? And that was a little bit less of a full pivot and more of kind of a broadening of the type of thing that we wanted to be able to support in the market. But when we first started, we did not have our sights set on kind of this broader readiness, post-secondary readiness market that we exist in now. We were very singularly focused on how do we help as many kids track community service hours as possible. What was interesting is that when we launched that tool and when we started having customers with that tool, we found that a lot of customers were using the software to kind of arm wrench other processes together. And that's when we started to realize, oh, there's something more here, and there's something that we've hit on something, struck a chord that's kind of special with a lot of people. And so that's when we said, okay, well, let's broaden kind of our vision. And so for us, that was our just start moment, right? Like, let's just start with community service tracking, which from a technology standpoint was not a particularly difficult tool to build, right? And so that certainly made that part easier too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I was also curious what like in the founding process, what was your like wow moment or just like favorite moment throughout founding Transeo?
That's a good question. I think every day I'm wowed by something different, and I think most of those wow factors are always driven by either the employees that we have here at Transeo and our team members, or the customers that we serve. Every day that I'm just kind of blown away by the amount of dedication and the amount of passion that our team members have. And then also just the innovative ways that customers are thinking through how to use our software to help students. And so it's hard to pick just one. I feel like every day I discover something new that really makes me excited. But yeah, I feel very fortunate to kind of be able to exist and work at the intersection of those two groups, because they're both just so passionate, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. And was there ever a moment where you, like, after working for a while on Transeo, you like really saw it in the real world helping someone and it just really had an impact on you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was one instance where the largest portion of what we do is a product called Jobs. And it's our work-based learning software. So helping students get into the workforce, find experiences, and then track and interact with those experiences. And we had this amazing moment once where there was a student who was using our software to check into her job. And one of the things our software can do is grab their location and track that to make sure that they're actually at their job site and doing what they're saying that they're doing. And the student stopped checking in for a few days in a row, and the location was, kind of pinging all over the local region that they were living in. And so the teachers called up the student and said, "Hey, what's going on with this? It's clear that you're not actually at your job site." And it turns out that the student had recently become homeless. And hadn't told her teachers, hadn't told the counselor at the school. And the software indirectly helped pick up on that and helped throw a red flag that something weird and something wrong was going on. And so that was definitely one of those moments where we were like, oh wow, we're seeing the real life impact of what the software can do when it's deployed in the right way, and help students kind of get on track and stay on track. And so that was a very powerful moment that I don't think any of us have ever forgotten.
Yeah. And I guess that's a really great example of how, like you were saying, just to really start at something, because I guess it started as a community-based thing and then it kind of developed into a bunch of tools. And I guess I'm sure that seeing this actually like genuinely help someone in an aspect that you didn't really plan on was really incredible to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I feel very lucky that we were in, again, so much of this is luck, right? That we were in the right place at the right time to be able to help with that situation, and in a very small way, right? The real help and the real work was done by the teachers and the interventionists, who then went in and tried to help figure out what do next steps look like. But being able to be there and throw up just a little red flag that says, hey, something's weird, we don't know what, but something's off. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is really all I had to talk about today. I really appreciate you coming on. It was really great talking to you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, appreciate the time.
Of course. And hopefully sometime soon you can get $50,000 to throw away. It'll be fun for both of you. Yeah.
That would be nice. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.
You too.